One of the flagship programs of the No Child Left Behind law was called Reading First. The Bush administration invested over $1 billion, that's with a B as in boy, $1 billion a year between 2002 and 2008 to improve the reading skills of students in kindergarten through third grade. Reading First required scientifically proven programs, so on the face of it, it sounds like a good goal pursued wisely. Yet, on May 7, 2008, Education Week reported on a major federal study of the program that found, and I quote, "The $1 billion a year Reading First program has had no measurable effect on students' reading comprehension on average, although participating schools are spending significantly more time teaching the basic skills that researchers say children need to become proficient readers." End quote. So that investment caused more teaching time devoted to certain basic skills for reading, namely decoding. But that focus on delivering that particular skill did not help the children to better comprehend what they read. In March 2009, the funding for Reading First was eliminated. Over $6 billion gone, and they failed to produce meaningful improvements. How could such a huge, science-informed investment fail so miserably? That waste of $6 billion is just one of the more spectacular symptoms of a major problem in education, with two root causes. The first root cause is use of vanity metrics instead of actionable metrics to assess the intended improvements in learning. In case you're not familiar with the term, vanity metrics refers to gathering data that gives you the illusion of knowing something useful. The term was coined by entrepreneur Eric Ries to explain why so many startup businesses fail. The idea is that if you are an entrepreneur and you don't figure out how to get actionable data, then you will most likely fail. Actionable data is data that tells you what to do to improve an important business process. Vanity metrics are widespread throughout much of our society, so it's not surprising to find it in education. And scientists are not immune to the problem of vanity metrics. Scientists have sophisticated arguments for justifying whatever metric they favor, but their sophisticated argumentation can deceive practitioners about the usefulness of those metrics. The science behind Reading First programs included clear evidence showing that they could help children decode. But reading involves a lot more than decoding skills. They had an impoverished concept of what it takes to learn to read. And that $6 billion failure occurred because those programs were embedded in a system that enforces an impoverished concept of learning. That misunderstanding of how learning works is the second and most important root cause of the Reading First debacle. It was a paradigm that led policymakers and their scientific advisors to suppose that with the right combination of instructional delivery techniques and targeted incentives, they could productively improve the learning outcomes for young children. That misunderstanding has been pointed out by critics for at least 100 years, by the likes of John Dewey and Paulo Freire. But what has been missing from that critical dialogue has been a replacement concept. If learning is not delivery, then what is it? Fortunately, we've learned a lot more about learning since Dewey and Freire were writing their criticism. Ironically, the scientists who study learning don't seem to realize yet that they have arrived at a new paradigm for learning. They all talk about learning using terms that are consistent with what I call the growing mental maps paradigm. The two models completely contradict each other and are utterly incompatible. Yet the harmful and rejected delivery paradigm continues to guide many schools, and it is still the only model that's reflected in public policy. In part 2, I would explain the failed delivery paradigm, then in part 3, I will explain the growing mental maps paradigm, and how it would have better informed the Bush administration and could have prevented the waste of $6 billion.